This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Storyblocks is the world's best stock media service offering video, audio, and images with the most affordable subscription plans on the market. Their ever-growing library has over 1 million high-quality, royalty-free assets, so you can bring your content to life more quickly and efficiently than ever before. With Storyblocks' unlimited all-access plan, you get unlimited downloads of everything in their library, so you can try out multiple options and find the perfect fit for whatever you're making. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/only-a-test. Again, that's storyblocks.com/only-a-test.
Hey, why don't we begin the show?
All right. Well, for January 21st, 2021, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to the podcast this week. It feels like the year has finally started. I don't know for you guys, if it feels the same way, but for me, certainly. I woke up this morning feeling bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, well-rested this Thursday as we're recording this. For some reason. I don't know why that is.
Is it because the MCU is back? Is that why you're like, oh, normalcy has returned?
Oh, yes. So Pleasantville. Like, we're going to get to that. Kishore, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir.
Busy as always. We're as we roll into the next couple weeks, I know we're gonna pick your brain a little bit more about the vaccination stuff that's going on. And the PSA for at least San Francisco residents is you can sign up on the website to get notified via text or I guess email about when it's your turn to get vaccinated. I know we have many listeners in the Bay Area. I'll put a link to that website in the show notes and descriptions below. But Jeremy Williams also. New gig, Jeremy. How you doing?
New gig, Jeremy. I'm well. Thank you for asking. I have my coffee, and I'm all right. Last week I was working during the podcast, and I was informed that you could hear me typing. I'll try to keep off the keyboard this week. I apologize.
As I was going through the edits, I initially thought it was just Kishore because that is it
is my homework,
Kishore. But you also, Kishore, turned on the NVIDIA auto ducking of the sound specifically for keyboard clacking. So, Jeremy, I know you have a 3070 now.
Wow.
Maybe it's a feature that you could try also, so you can multitask.
RTX on, keyboard clacking off.
That's right. That's right. You want to look extra ray traced and extra clacks diminished. Very eventful week in the past 7 days. Of course, the most important thing in our world, well, if you listen to our other podcasts, you probably heard our announcement that we have sunsetted, retired the Adam Savage Project / Still Untitled, our other show that we had been running on for 8 years. And if you're a new listener to this podcast, if you migrated feeds or subscribed anew, well, hopefully we'll put on a good show and hopefully we'll help fill that void in giving you a weekly update on the things happening in not only in our world, but our thoughts on technology, pop culture, and all sorts of fun stuff. But it's been really great to just get the feedback and just some really nice notes on our Discord, on Twitter, and on our website from listeners. Again, I think I said this in our farewell message, but it always astounds me to realize there have been people listening to us. Like it's not, even though we've been recording 400 or so episodes, it still is very difficult to connect the dots and realize tens of thousands of people out there actually listen and remember the things we say. Because when we record, like when the three of us record, in my mind, it's just the three of us having a conversation.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, that is exactly what I think podcasts should be. It's not everybody has access to people, so informed about the Marvel universe as you two. So to be able to sit down and hear a conversation with you, it's a lot easier than reading the Marvel blogs, and we get to feel like we know what's going on in the world of Marvel.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, they say that when they listen to the podcast, they felt like they were sitting at the table and they want to chime in. I think that's a good hallmark of a good podcast, especially the ones I listen to, where I feel like I want to jump in. I feel like I'm part of the conversation, even though it's an asymmetrical relationship, we'll call it.
It was a good run. I'm glad like the archive is going to remain up on YouTube and on the feed, because a lot of those episodes, especially the ones where it's like just you, Will, and Adam shooting the crap, those are timeless episodes. So you can just kind of jump in and revisit. Or if you want to scare the bejesus out of yourself, you can go listen to that one with Joe DeRisi again.
Oh my God. All timer. Absolutely. These are documents of record. I don't think we think of it that way either. These podcasts are going to be on the internet forever, right? And so
I thought about
back.
I thought about that a lot when I was starting to do this podcast with you. You know, and I think everyone who's new to the podcast does, and that's why they're quiet, you know, because they're smart and they know that everything they say is going out there forever. Like you said, this is going to be on record no matter what happens. So
it's a double-edged sword. I think about this in terms of media a lot, the difference between, you know, podcasting video versus the written word or typed written social media. Written word is indexable. Twitter and social media, for a large part, you can create their databases, third-party databases, first-party databases. You can download your entire tweet history, right? It's very easily searchable, as long as Twitter keeps the servers up. But video, a little less so. But over time, with computational power like Google's putting into YouTube, they'll transcribe everything automatically, and they'll find some ways with computer learning to make that indexable too. And then audio, even though it's kind of in between video and text, it's the least indexed, because there's so many. Even though there are feeds, like theoretically it should all be there. To transcribe the audio shouldn't be difficult, but it's the least indexed. Maybe just because there's just so much of it out there. But eventually, one day it'll be easy for me to ask myself, when did I have this one thought about this one thing? And I might have said it on a podcast, and I'll be able to type into the Wayback Machine podcast edition, and it'll point me to that episode of There's Only a Test or Still Untitled, and I'll be able to pull it back and let my kid listen to it.
It's funny you say the Wayback, because Jason Scott, who works at the Internet Archive, has been archiving podcasts since the mid-aughts. So yeah, it's definitely, the process has begun.
Yeah, it's the fun part of making educated and uneducated proclamations in audio form, to always go back, which we'll start off with our top story this week.
Top story this week.
Jeremy, I know you don't like us talking about Apple rumors. I know you said we should stop covering them, but this I felt like was a rumor, at least based on the sourcing of it. This is Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg, and also the topic that I thought merited some discussion. Honestly, it's been a relatively quiet post-CES 2021 news week. So the big report that came out this morning is about Apple's VR glasses, which we anticipate is a precursor to their AR glasses. I think Tim Cook has not been shy in investor calls to talk about augmented reality being a big next-gen computing platform beyond the smartphone, beyond laptops. It's a place where we anticipate that they're going to try to build another pillar of their business, but to get there, the maybe surprising thing is that they still need to dip their toes into VR technologies first as an intermediate step, which still is a nascent market, but still dominated right now on the desktop side by Steam VR, and then on the mobile side with the Oculus platform. Specifically, the Mark Gurman report over at Bloomberg says that Apple is running into some fundamental difficulties in the hardware for these VR glasses, in that they think the processing, which Apple absolutely excels at. They have their ultra fast M1 chips in their MacBook Airs and 13-inch MacBook Pros. The anticipation is that whatever is going to be processing these VR glasses will be a chip even beyond this M1 chip, but along maybe the same lines of the same architecture. But the fundamentals of VR glasses, ergonomics, weight distribution, battery, all that stuff, these are constraints that every hardware maker working in the VR space has had to deal with over the past 5 to 10 years. And so things like using fabrics and as a material, these are things that looks like they may be dipping their toes into.
So they're just bringing back Daydream VR's like fabric model.
Well, Daydream VR was still put your phone inside
of course.
a cloth inside fabric cardboard, right? And Google Sheets or Google Linen. This would presumably be some entirely custom hardware design with their chips, their batteries, their screens, whatever they're sourcing. And I guess the more notable part of this rumor is that because this VR headset is something that would be an intermediate step to AR, it may not be a mass market headset. The report is that they would still sell it to consumers, but at a quantity of maybe 200,000 a year, meaning Apple stores would sell one a day. In a world
does
where
that mean
Apple
it's ultra expensive? Is that why?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think
if you're only selling that many units, is this going to be like the what is it, like the $15,000 Mac Pro desktop thing, where it's going to be? I mean, I'm not saying it'll be $15,000, but maybe it'll be something that's so exclusive and niche that very few people actually end up buying this, and that's why they're speccing out the demand.
More akin to the Apple Edition watches, the ceramic watches or the gold watches, more so than the $15,000 MacBook Pro, because that you can actually do something with. And with a, let's say on the high end, right? If we're talking about expensive, I don't know. The report didn't indicate if expensive was relative to the $300 Quest 2 or $1,000 Valve Index PC VR headset. I don't know what expensive means. You add the Apple tax and you could be talking about $1,500. Like, I think $2,000 range, kind of the Magic Leap range, is somewhere that makes sense. But why even put this out as a potential consumer product? Is it purely as this kind of boutique exclusivity play to get the public interested? What are the benefits of making this not just an R&D product at all?
I think that question is going to be up in the air until Apple announces this device, because I don't think on the surface a VR device makes any sense for Apple, because the only market that's had any traction here is games, and despite their move into the arcade space, they are essentially a 2D platform and strictly pancake games. They have no experience with VR games, and they've never really shown any interest in pursuing that market beyond, flirting with it in the arcade. But in the arcade, seriously, like, I don't know many people who subscribe to that who don't just want it for their kids. This is a multi-$1,000 device potentially that you'll use to play games. That doesn't make sense. They've never sold a gaming device. They've only put games on some of their devices as an afterthought. So I don't know, man. It makes very little sense. I mean, I could imagine that some of this has been misconstrued by Bloomberg, and it actually has AR capabilities, maybe simply through SLAM, the LiDAR scanning that they're doing with the iPad right now and the new phones, because that can construct a really interesting 3D geometric representation of the world that is beyond anything Oculus is doing, way beyond that. So if they can incorporate that, and not necessarily like pass through cameras, but an actual 3D reconstruction of the world, then yeah, that's not augmented reality in the sense that we always considered it to be, but it is certainly more along the path of what we've always thought Apple was down, which is, yes, augmented reality is the future. It's going to be what allows everyone to engage with the real world and have all of the information of the cloud placed on top of it, which is interesting.
I think the relative success of the Oculus, the Quest 2 this holiday season, makes it really difficult for them to have any real VR play even as a hobby product like what Apple TV was when they first announced it. And going back to the Apple Arcade talk and Apple having not a lot of experience in that, even when Apple Arcade launched and it launched to great reviews, and I think there's a fair number of people subscribed. I think that interest has petered off because they realize you can't just throw money at that problem, right? They did initially with the lead time of getting a lot of developers on board and having a great launch lineup, but that lineup has not been sustained. You see a lot of that also in their, the TV show business. It takes a long on ramp, and especially if you're talking about a completely new for them ecosystem of not flat screen type of consumer content. No matter how strong they believe their hardware might be in the AR space, and I don't think they've solved the problems that other big hardware companies, even like Microsoft or like Magic Leap and Facebook, have solved yet in terms of the optics. They have to come out real strong with an ecosystem of software, and so I can only imagine that if there's misconstruing in this Bloomberg article, it's also that maybe the VR headset is a pass-through headset or a developer pass-through headset to make AR content and get the SLAM tested out in real-world conditions and send that feedback back, than it is something aimed for even the earliest of early adopters in the consumer space.
I disagree in this one way, which is that while there is only a niche market for VR, like VR hardware is pretty unrefined. And Apple is really good at taking slightly unrefined hardware and putting a incredible design aesthetic over it. So I could imagine them being really attracted to this space for the hardware design aspect of it only. And if they can make it a vehicle for entertainment, and not just games, then it becomes much more of a business case.
What do you imagine the tech is, though? What are they going to bring to it beyond the Oculus Quest?
Computation. Purely, I think computation. I think Quest 2 having the cutting edge, Qualcomm processor that's the best that they can throw money at because they don't fab and design their own chips. Apple has 10 plus years of ARM experience of proven fab, and now leapfrogging Intel on the computation side on the MacBooks. Them doing this, them putting the best of the best chips into and all the learning that the iPad has now done and the iPhone has now done with their LiDAR sensors into a mobile device, and then engineering also, right? I think, sure, you said that VR is unrefined. It's funny from an aesthetic position because VR is one device where I don't care what it looks like from the outside. I care how comfortable it is to wear. AR is going to be certainly different. AR, I think you have to care about what it looks like in the real world. But I think what you meant is that Apple brings industrial design expertise in terms of manufacturing, right, and engineering, that it's less off the shelf in terms of piecing hardware together.
Yeah, and that weight issue is something that Apple probably can do a lot about. I know there's physics limitations here, but I would think they're trying to shrink the box into something that's much closer to your eyes in terms of application, or at least that's what I would expect. That this looks more like a pair of Magic Leap glasses than it does a boxy VR, set of goggles.
Puck or no puck?
Puck? Oh, I thought phone. Like, I'm surprised that they're not clearly leaning into using the phone for compute.
Why would they do that,
bandwidth
though?
on the cable? Yeah, I think that if they can integrate the hardware, because the phone is a bootstrap design, I think logically from a price standpoint, that makes a lot of sense with the phone being very powerful and them controlling the hardware software on the phone, which is what a lot of these AR glasses companies are doing. Nreal, for example, you plug it into an Android phone, but if they can engineer from the ground up and make the chips and have it integrated into a strap or their own puck design, I don't think they're going to go with puck design. I think they might be one of the first to go with hardware and maybe battery in the back of the head, which is something that Oculus didn't want to do for the Quest 2 because they use the cloth strap.
I think if you use the phone too, then VR becomes a phone accessory as opposed to a standalone hardware device. And everything else about Apple is about standalone devices. They may work well with each other, but they don't necessarily power each other.
Well, one thing I'm sure of is that they're underestimating demand. Even at whatever price they put it out at, they're going to expect to sell one a week, or what, is that what it was? One a day.
It was one a day from every Apple store.
And it's going to be the freaking AirPod Maxes all over again. You're not going to be able to get them for months.
And I think they run the sphere of the misconception of the public expectation. Even if they really hammer in, like at their whatever keynote they announce this in, Tim Cook says this is a developer device. It's not for consumers. It's super expensive. We're only going to make $200,000 a year to as the roadmap to AR. The media, the influencers and the reviewers are gonna treat it like and scrutinize it as if this is the end all Apple VR product when it doesn't have to be, which is the interesting spot they put themselves in because they're trying to step directly into AR and have cement their footing in that market when they don't have a VR product. And which is the opposite of the Facebook strategy, which Facebook is going to go for AR. They've said that as much, at Facebook Connect, but VR is a big business for them because of gaming and because of the price point they can get it at and all the network effects, right? All the kids sharing, the AirPods effect of kids talking about it at the schools and that kind of desire and for this hardware that has happened with the Quest. Like kids love playing with it. What Beat Saber has done for that ecosystem makes it a viable market.
When you mentioned Tim Cook, though, can't you picture the Apple launch of something like this and what a Tim Cook demo would look like with this, like a whole 20 minutes built around a device like this? And the thing that really excites me about this, acknowledging all the limitations you put forth, is Apple, better than any other technology company, explains the relevance and the use of technology better than anyone else. They put it into real world context. And so I think they'll make a case for VR that others haven't been able to cross because there's still widespread kind of misunderstanding of what VR can really do at this point, even though it's been a consumer product now for 5 years, longer than that.
There are no. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's no consumer device yet that is brought eye tracking, let alone face tracking. And if Apple can crack that nut, and at these prices they should be able to, then that's going to basically make the killer app for VR being social, finally something that works for everybody. You put it on, you don't see an avatar anymore. You see your uncle, you see the person standing in front of you. If they can pull that off, I think that would be all they would need to do in order to have a product that's sellable.
Face tracking is the multi-touch for VR. That multi-touch was for phones. It's what makes it super intuitive where, just like hand tracking, I think that they can't have this product without thinking about hand tracking also. And their specific competitive advantage there is privacy, where they can come out and say, we're unabashed about putting the cutting edge face tracking and eye tracking hardware, and privacy is our number one concern. The full page ad that they'll put out there. It's the oxymoron that Facebook has the world's biggest social network, but social is the one thing that on the Quest side it's still hasn't reached its full potential.
Where's Horizon?
Exactly, Horizon, and a lot of that has to do with the research they're doing with the face tracking stuff. But that's the untapped, I think. Almost it's low hanging fruit in terms of it being an idea that you want to achieve, but it's so difficult from a technology perspective to launch. And maybe that's why they're going to launch it only at couple 100,000 units, because then the people who have that headset, they're going to be part of this very controllable and easy to scale up social network if social VR becomes a big selling point for this. It's not any concrete news, but timing wise, the things I'll theorize no puck. I don't think they would design something with Computing Puck, and timing wise, I would hope to see middle of next year. I think 2022 keynote is when we'll see VR announced for a fall 2022 launch, a year and a half away.
All right.
Is what I think.
You said it.
Yeah.
It's on the internet forever.
As long as it becomes indexable. All right, let's move on to pop culture. I thought about dividing this segment up for every week we could do a catch up on what's new in the latest or in every one of the many streaming services. And then as I started to tally the different services, the big flagship ones, there's just too many. It would not be tenable. But last week saw the first 2 episodes of WandaVision drop. This is MCU in TV form for its first time. And so I think, as long as you guys are up for it, I would like to do a WandaVision recap and discussion for the next 6 weeks or so. You guys cool with that?
Yeah, I'm cool with it, but I have no idea how to approach this because I'm not sure what I watched. So, I'm not sure I can recap it.
So I think you're gonna need the canned laughter queued up for this segment.
Oh my god! Well, at least for certain episodes, who knows? The format may change. I guess the one spoiler-free thing that we can talk about, well, whether you liked it or not, and whether it met your expectations, I want to definitely hear that. But format-wise, if you're not clued into the show, it is a show that's a follow-up to the events of Endgame. It's presumably, I think that's safe to say without being too big of a spoiler. This is Wanda in the Vision, and the formatting, it seems like every episode is formatted like a sitcom of a different era. The first one is very much in the mold of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and the second episode of Bewitched, down to their opening credits, the way the shows is shot, the type of humor, and my impressions were I loved it. I loved how earnest they were in recreating that format, and while also still being genuinely funny. It didn't feel too much like a parody, and there was enough mystery at the end to leave me intrigued. What about you guys?
I'm going to make a bold recommendation that's non-spoiler. I think people should wait and actually binge this when the episodes come out, as opposed to a weekly drop. Because this, I feel like, and this is a bit of a guess, there's an undercurrent of a mystery that's unfolding, and that's not much of a spoiler. And I think that might actually play better as a binged series as opposed to a week by week.
But a mystery a serialized mystery lends itself to the week by week discussion, the water cooler talk that is our podcast.
This isn't a water cooler show. This is a high art piece.
It's conceptual for sure. Jeremy, what'd you think? I
didn't care for it. I mean, and it's I like Marvel, and in fact, didn't I say last week that I expected it to be great? I feel like this show relies on you liking the premise so much that you can enjoy it anyway, and I don't. Like, I want to see. First, there's a lot going on if you're aware of the comic books and a lot of the other characters and the backstory of Scarlet Witch and Vision. Apparently, I don't know these things, but my son looked it up on the internet, and there's all this clear references going on. And I think if you know that, great. Then you're sort of enjoying almost a different show, and you're seeing all the subtext and you're making connections. But if you're if you're like me, which is most people, then you're basically watching Bewitched or the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I'm not into it. I can't. The canned laughter gives me PTSD. I don't like it at all. I hate it. And I'm not into the format. So that's a problem. And I do hope it evolves, because that will be more interesting.
Well, I think that's what they're telegraphing. The trailers indicate that every episode is a new decade. So we're talking about the 50s, 40s, 50s, and then or was it 50s, 60s, 50s, 60s, and then presumably the episode premiering this week, airing this week, will be a 70s, maybe Brady Bunch style show, and then of an 80s show and a 90s show and a 2000s, an aughts show. And we don't know what molds they're turning to. Like Brady Bunch may be one of them, but will there be what's the 80s one, right? Is
Family
it Three's Company?
Ties, maybe.
Like, what is that, right? What is the aughts one? And it's that's gonna resonate with audiences with very differently. I mean, I think we're of the generation that we can still remember, at least in reruns, Brady Bunch and Bewitched and those shows on broadcast television. But there's a whole younger generation. I'm really interested, like, what your kids thought of this show, because I'm sure they weren't Bewitched or Dick Van Dyke Show fans. Screen Gems Network wasn't a thing when they were growing up, right? What did they have Did you have to like go and bring up YouTube clips to let them know what the show was referencing?
No, I only watched it with my 13-year-old, and he got it. He got the premise, but of course he didn't see direct connections because he hasn't watched that era of TV, and nor does he have any interest to. And that's my bigger point, is that like these shows have to stand on their own. They can't just be about the subtext. And for me, I just didn't enjoy watching these first 2 episodes.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy on this way. Like I didn't feel like the larger story that's trying to be told was advanced much at all in these 2 episodes. We got like 2 vignettes. And so I am one of the people that got the subtext, but the subtext actually didn't move the story forward that much. It just was like Easter egg, Easter egg, Easter egg. So that's why I was in favor of binging this. Is I feel like maybe we're in this slow ramp up period for this show, and then the show is going to increasingly become about like what is actually happening here. But if we're in that slow burn period, I think the first like probably month of this show is going to be pretty boring.
And I think they're relying on the devotion to the MCU to get you through. Like they have that as the thing to fall back on. It's not they can take for granted the audience to some extent because this is such a big event show, and it doesn't land like the Mandalorian first episode did, and it is a slow burn. I think that's what I think will help the show stand the test of time a little longer, because like I think they achieved something really interesting with the writing and with the acting specifically. If Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany over the course of this series can modify their acting, and if the production team can change it up, it's going to be this really like and if the idea of sitcoms through the ages somehow isn't just a conceit that is for our benefit, but it's a conceit that actually ties into the mystery of the show. Like, why is it 20th century US sitcoms? That's what I think they have to land on. And if that doesn't land, then I think the idea is just a gimmick.
Can I get your theories on what's going on?
Oh yeah. So let me pop on the spoiler light. You got two clues, right? You got the radio message that Wanda hears through the radio of like, Wanda, where are you? And I think that's Randall Park's voice, and he's a confirmed actor on the show. You also have Kat Dennings, who was Natalie Portman's assistant. That's the Darcy character from the Thor movies. She's going to be on the show, confirmed. So there's definitely a weird like alternate reality bubble that's happening that Scarlet Witch and the Vision, who is dead as far as we know, are living through. And the beekeeper scene at the end of the second episode, which is one of the reasons I think they had to drop both these episodes on day one, that gives you the biggest clue is what's happening, is that all of this is a reality altering construct on the part of Wanda, Scarlet Witch, and the trauma that she feels after the death of the Vision in Infinity War. She killed the Vision. Thanos rewound time, brought him back, and then killed him again. And Wanda losing control of her powers is something that happens in the comics. And the House of M event, where she creates an alternate reality with no mutants because mutants are a part of her backstory in the comic books. That's, I think, what they were referring to here, is that this is all coping mechanism, this world that she's built to deal with the Vision being gone.
I mostly agree. I also, so I do think this whole thing is a construct in Wanda's mind. But I also think there's some outside forces that might be leveraging this. And I wondered if the beekeeper was an allusion to AIM in some way, shape, or form, even though there was a sword logo displayed. And then the sword logo that came up, there's a couple times you saw this logo. This is a kind of a subdivision of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we saw Nick Fury in a post-credit sequence on a spaceship. It would be that kind of agency. Yeah. So I think there's some good guys trying to reach her, but I do think there's a villain. And I think it's no shock that Catherine Hahn, I think, is lining up to be a villain in this show. That's my sort of read on things too.
So they're the people that are trapped, presumably, in this alternate bubble reality that's of her mind, not necessarily in her mind. It's a physical space. Some of them are more in the know than others and are maybe willing, or participants or enablers in this construct. The reference that you meant they made of AIM. AIM is a Hydra-like villainous organization in the Marvel comics, except they're all technology based. MODOK comes out of AIM, and the character, the henchmen of AIM in the comic books all look like they're wearing giant yellow hazmat suits, and that's where the beekeeper outfit may be a visual allusion to that. But Sword is the offshoot of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. being in the MCU disbanded after the Hydra infiltration, but Sword is the more proactive agency that comes out of that. I don't think this is space related. So the Nick Fury working with the Skrulls, forming Sword, it's going to be his own TV show that they announced back in the Marvel Investor Day. So, but this could be an offshoot of that. That's more mystical in nature.
Is there any way that Vision comes out of this alive?
I don't think so.
I think it's a tragedy. I think it's going to end up being a tragedy. Like they're gonna pull the heartstrings, and for the Vision to come out of any of it alive, I think they would rather save that for the movies than for a TV show. Yeah, and this show does theoretically also set up Wanda's involvement in the Doctor Strange movie that's been confirmed, the Multiverse of Madness. So I don't know what that means. Like, this is not multiversal, right? This is reality changing. That's a gray area. What's the difference between a multiverse and a reality shift, an alternate reality in this universe? But I think from TV making standpoint, I think they were smart because they were on TV, high budget TV budgets to make this not a globe-trotting adventure, to make it with the conceit of the sitcom, for them to be able to film on these backlots and in sound stages with these sets they built. Like that's what makes it feel TV for them. If this is gonna be the first MCU TV show, they use TV as the format. And that was probably what the pitch was as well. All right, turning off the spoiler lights. A couple other bits of pop culture news. Willy Wonka may get a prequel movie. I don't know if I need this. Didn't we get this in the Johnny Depp, Tim Burton?
I'm not sure I needed the Johnny Depp version.
I never saw the Johnny Depp version. That's how much I didn't need it. I'm a big Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory fan. And I'm also a big Paddington fan. And this is a prequel by the Paddington director. So I'm on board. Like, this sounds great. Who doesn't want to know the origin story of Willy Wonka? That hasn't been told yet.
Well, if you saw the Tim Burton Johnny Depp one, it was told.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm not sure I need the Willy Wonka origin again, but you're right. Paddington was one of the best movies that year. I think it was 2017 or 2016.
Paddington 2 was even better.
Yeah. They're
really close.
100%.
Great soundtrack too.
So you're right. Like the chops here are great, but all of this revolves around not the director, but who you cast as Willy Wonka, because that is such a actor driven role.
So the names have come up. I think
Oh
Tom
no, their
Holland.
names.
Yeah,
Tom Holland
has come up. I don't think he's right for it. They're looking for young, right? What is the young Willy Wonka story? He's obviously he's globetrotting. He is going around the world and conning indigenous people to work at a chocolate factory. Like, are they going to try to tell why he loves chocolate? Like what is the story that we want to tell? We want to learn about this man who is an inventor or something.
What about the
other
guy?
name?
What about the guy who played Stephen Hawking?
Oh, Eddie Redmayne. He's I think a little too old.
Yeah, he's a bit older
for what they're going for. But I think I would trust in Eddie Redmayne. What he plays in the Fantastic Beasts movie, I think feels Wonka-ish. The other name I think would be very apt is Timothy Chalamet. I think could pull off a young Willy Wonka. Whoever they pick, the casting. Here's what the casting the casting call is going to look like, and the audition is going to look like. They're going to get these actors to come in, and they're going to give them a top hat and a coat with tails. And if you can wear like a tux coat with long tails in the back and pull that off, then that's I think the important benchmark for Willy Wonka.
You know what gives me energy around this though? Like thinking about Paddington and just how much I love that movie. It treats the characters with so much love and affection. And that's what was so bad about the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka is like he was a little bit mean-spirited and lacked much of the charisma that Gene Wilder brought to it. So if that's a bit of the kind of ethos going into this, then I can see actually a Tom Holland being like a more likable personality being Willy Wonka.
Yeah, I think they pulled too much of the weirdness, the surrealness of the Gene Wilder performance, the unpredictability. There was a little bit of a sociopathy to the Gene Wilder performance, and they kind of made that aloofness the hallmark of the Tim Burton Johnny Depp performance, which he also then repeated again in Mad Hatter and an Alice in Wonderland movie. And that's let's not make it a showcase for capital P performance, right? I don't need capital A acting here. It's going to a lot depend on the story and the heart. And I think that's why we're excited about this, because the Paddington director really put a lot of heart in those films. And can work with effects and CG and all this sort of fantastical, the twee storytelling that doesn't need to be Wes Anderson levels of twee, but still very whimsical that you need for this book. Kong vs. Godzilla is coming to HBO Max in March. They brought up the release date. They've hammered out a deal. This is another film that I really wish IMAX theaters were open for, because it's a movie I want to see in IMAX. Even with my nice LG OLED screen at home, I don't know if it's going to be the same effect.
I think you're going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We're going to get Kong versus Godzilla if you want to watch it, and it's going to be fine. You could always watch it in a big screen. Put it on the VR headset. You want an IMAX screen? Get yourself the Reverb G2. Get you a high res screen. If you need that immersion. But I think we're going to be all right. Sound,
I think, is going to be an important one for this film. Get some nice speakers. If you wear it in the VR headset, so the Reverb G2 would be a good one for that. Having the index speakers, because you want to hear the big thunderous rumble. Dolby audio is just as important as Dolby Vision for this. Disney Plus slowly rolling things out. Big PSA for Toy Story fans. The what is it? Terror That Time Forgot. Those half-hour Toy Story 3 TV specials are now on Disney Plus as well. And also coming soon will be the entire run of the original Muppet variety show.
All right.
All 5 seasons are heading there. It's been a long time coming. February 19th is when they'll be.
Did you know the Muppet Show started out on Saturday Night Live? Well, it didn't start out as the Muppet Show, but Jim Henson was doing a Muppet segment on the first season of Saturday Night Live, and it bombed so hard that he went off and started his own show, The Muppet Show.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either until this week when The Muppet Show was everywhere, and it popped up on Reddit.
It's a format that's timeless, and yet I don't think they could do it again. They've tried reviving the Muppets in all sorts of different ways. They have that Office sitcom version. it is just of the era, and maybe it's the Jim Henson involvement, maybe it's the earnestness of all the performers and the guests on it. The closest that we get now is so probably Sesame Street, which is on HBO Max, and the guests that they got on, and the specials that they've done. I think those are nice and whimsical, and relevant in terms of things that adults and parents can appreciate. But this is really a time capsule of just pure, like, quality entertainment and performance. So looking forward to it.
I don't know. I feel like Neil Patrick Harris could probably pull off like hosting and running a variety show.
But you want the Muppets to run it. You don't need the humans to run it. That's like, you don't need a human anchor, right? Kermit's enough for that.
But there was always a celebrity host, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right. That's what, like, yes, Neil Patrick Harris would be a great celebrity guest. Bring in John Legend, bring in the people that you would have on Sesame Street these days. But I don't think you need it to be based around the Muppets alongside the Jason Segel, like in the movie. They just exist in their own space. Disney's also working on a bunch of Star Wars shows, of course. Alan Tudyk, who did the voice of K2SO in Rogue One, confirmed that K2SO will not be part of the Cassian Andor show, at least not in the beginning, which makes sense. I think even though it's a prequel, you're not going to get K2SO until probably the end of it, because it's an expensive character to do on screen.
We just rewatched Firefly, and my 13-year-old, and he said that he thinks this might be his favorite TV show he's ever seen.
You can tell him right now.
So it holds up.
Correct. He is absolutely 100% correct.
I mean, it's almost 20 years old.
More of it, right? Does he know that that's it? I mean,
we watched
comic books.
We watched Serenity.
Oh, what do you think of that?
To cap it off, not as it's like a it was fine. It was a good. Obviously, Alan Tudyk doesn't have the best fate in the movie Serenity, but we enjoyed it. It's like a very good episode, and it ties a bow on some of the storylines.
Answer some of the questions. Reavers.
Not all of them, but yes.
Right. And a great villain as well in Chiwetel Ejiofor. Oh, I gotta say, I mentioned a couple weeks ago that movie Locked Out on HBO with Chiwetel Ejiofor and Anne Hathaway on HBO. We couldn't even make it through 30 minutes of that movie. It was no good. It was, and I know it's not easy to make a movie. I don't want to shit on movies just for the sake of shitting on movies, but this felt like a movie that was needed because actors needed to act, and it was just overly acted, way too unrealistically written. Like it was 2 hours. Like it was just needed editing. It needed a new script. It felt like the actors were bored out of their minds. Is wanted to get dialogue out in front of a camera because they weren't, flexing those acting chops. And I'm glad the movie exists because they can get out of their system. They can work on real movies once this whole pandemic is over. That's what I want to say. Last two bits. Paramount Plus will replace CBS All Access. They're going to do an investor day. We're going to announce the pricing for that. It's going to be everything in CBS All Access plus more, including Comedy Central, everything in that CBS, Viacom, Paramount family, Star Trek and all. I don't know what this means for Star Trek on services like Netflix, as they've been licensing things left and right so far, or things like South Park on HBO Max. I'm sure those contracts still hold up, but it's another subscription service. I mean, CBS All Access still has existed, but it's another big flagship, big one in the vein of HBO Max. And then finally on Hulu, if you're a subscriber to Hulu, tomorrow, I guess, is the debut of In and of Itself, the Derek Delgado film directed by Frank Oz about the stage show that he did in Los Angeles and New York off Broadway 2-3 years ago. Kishore, you and I have both watched this. We watched it as part of the NYC Fest, and I'll be watching again on Hulu tomorrow. I think it's a perfect end to this, a perfect cathartic end to a cathartic week.
Don't read any spoilers. It was awesome. And if you saw the stage show, it's reimagined in a way that makes sense. One of my friends is actually in the documentary. She shows up, my friend Kate, and so it was also kind of oddly personal in that way.
I'm glad to hear you say this is a worthy depiction of it, because you guys having seen it and telling me what you could about it, I feel like I missed out on something really special. And so I'm glad that I have this version of it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's in one way it's a document of the thing that was the show that he put on, like this filmic document. It's how film comedy shows become, after a comedian tours with a comedy show, and then they put out the Netflix special using all their jokes, and it's like filmed over 2 or 3 nights and edited together. This is not that specifically. It's not like, let's take 2 filmings of the stage show and then edit it and put together so you can have a virtual ticket to watch it at home if you couldn't have been in New York or LA. This becomes about the whole show itself, while still giving you the experience as best as possible of what it was like to be in the audience. And the way they told the story of the run of that show, I think, is an achievement in itself. So Frank Oz directed the stage show. He also directed this film. Derek Delgadio on Twitter did a whole long thread about the collaboration between him and Frank Oz about the ideation of the show, what that was like. Just so much media to consume after watching the show. Watch it.
Yeah.
Talk about it next week. I would love to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say the best thing that Derek Delgadio has posted about this is he used the Bernie in a chair meme to promote the show. So
quality internet content. All right, let's move on. Only a few things I want to talk about here. One, iFixit has an incredible teardown of the AirPods Max, and this is one of the few iFixit teardowns that made me more covet the device after reading the teardown than I did before it.
Why?
I had no interest in wanting to even spend, and I'm still probably not. I'm not going to spend $500.
Is there like $100 just stashed in there that you get to pull out?
Yeah, they opened it up and they're like, you can resell the hardware here for $600. What was interesting about their teardown, because this is a pair of headphones, right? We're talking about the AirPods Max. They did this teardown alongside the Sony XM4s. So that was XM4 is the highest end Sony, or the $350 Sony noise canceling headphones that have been really great, and the Bose ones as well. And their big takeaway was the AirPods Max, the way it's constructed, the hardware that's inside, the engineering, not only in the speakers or but also the electronics and the physical hardware, everything comes together, makes these other headphones look like children's toys. They were particularly impressed by the hinge mechanism that connects the top band of the headphones with each of the ear cups. That hinge mechanism, the way that it articulates, is itself massively over engineered to a point for durability and for articulation. But something that they found out was that there's actually a small, almost like a SIM port reset port hole that if you put a pin in, it then detaches the head strap. And so it's a hint that Apple may sell third party or first party, but aftermarket head straps to go with your $550 AirPods Max headphones, because each left and right cup, it's wireless. Each left and right cup has the radio signals, has independent batteries.
Oh, I didn't know that. So there's no conductors between them?
No, it's purely a mechanical connection connecting the two. Just like the AirPods, they can work independently, left ear or right ear. Yeah. The AirPods Max can work independently, left and right. It's all synced with their custom radio hardware. There's also massive antennas underneath for signal. And I hadn't been looking into the AirPods Max. This is such an Apple thing, right? Not only is it like a purely, made to be wireless device. There's no auxiliary jack. There's a lightning cable for a port for charging it, but you want to have to use an adapter if you want to plug that into any line out. There's no power button either. There's no power button on the headphones, you basically have to put it in their smart pouch for it to go into a low power mode, or when it detects no movement with its accelerometers for a set duration of time, it goes into low power mode. And that's one of the reasons that some people actually have complained, because some users having it in their backpacks, that detection of movement and wear has not activated consistently, and they've been noticing a lot of vampire power drain.
Look out, Jeremy. They took away your headphone jack. Now they're coming for your power button.
Yeah.
Beware.
But
so just basic question. I didn't realize that they were independent batteries on both sides. To charge it, do you have to plug in both sides?
that's a good question. Maybe in the head strap itself, they have one cable for power. Actually, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Does the case charge it, or does
No.
okay.
The case is flimsy. It's just like a piece of fabric.
But there's some type of like RFID or NFC signal chip in there, so it knows it's in the case, so it can go into low power mode. None of this talks about the audio quality, and this is again one of those things that Apple, I'm sure, wishes. Well, they probably don't care because these things are sold out till March anyway. But if the Apple stores were places you could go in a normal world, this is a kind of device where you would want to go to try them out before you buy. I wouldn't recommend buying $550 headphones without trying them out first, because that's a whole lot of money to spend. How much were the HomePods when they first launched? Right, those are pretty. The full size ones were like $300, right? Was that right?
I never really looked into them. I listened to them. They sounded fine, but I didn't consider buying one.
Yeah, so part of it's like the iFixit teardown gave me insight into why they charge $550 for these headphones. Because if Apple wasn't confident in the hardware engineering, it would be $500. I think $500 feels like a very expensive pair of headphones. But the fact that they went for $549, $550 tells you that, one, they're extremely confident in their engineering and the quality of the physical hardware, or two, this is just some like luxury good, price inelasticity up there, where it doesn't matter. They could add that extra $50 on because people are going to spend that. Who are going to spend $500 might as well spend $550 plus tax, $600 on these headphones in most places in the States. The HomePods are $350 when they launched, and because Apple, as confident as they were in their own hardware, those were a failure. They dropped the $300. They dropped $50 very shortly after, and then now they have the launch of the $99 one to get people interested in that ecosystem for audio. It's not an easy business to be in. Home audio.
Well, when you're Apple and you can charge Apple prices, it's not too bad.
But it can go either way. I mean, the HomePods prove that you can try to charge Apple prices $350 and people still won't buy it, because it's a competitive marketplace. People are happy with their Echoes and their Google speakers and their Bose speakers, and maybe people were happy with their with their Sonys or their Boses or their Beats.
But in my opinion, like that's a different comparison, because the headphones, you really are comparing compatibility and sound quality. That's it. Like you can compare those apples to apples, so to speak, across all the different brands. They're all going to work with your iPhone, and which ones sound best and which ones feel the best and which ones have the best compatibility. When you're talking about the HomePod, then you're comparing services, and you're comparing like the different things you can do with it.
Right. Siri versus Echo.
Yes. And that's tough competition right now for Apple.
The other thing is that with AirPods, and the thing they learned from the AirPod Pros and the AirPods, is that they become fashion statements. And that's why the AirPods Max feels more like the Apple Watch than it does the HomePod, in that it's a statement that to say I could afford to spend $550 on headphones and wear them in the street comfortably, and I feel like I got $550 worth of electronics and engineering and product design in this because it's a fashion statement. That's where the luxury goods, in economics, right? You're paying more for something. The more you pay for it, the more valuable you feel like, and very few companies, Apple among them, can do that. I don't think Beats could even do that at this point, right? I'm going to skip the rest of the tech news bits.
What
Raspberry.
is this? Yeah, what is that? I don't know about that.
Raspberry Pi, they launched a Pico model. It's a $4 tiny board. Only has the I/O connectors plus one micro USB. I don't know if it's USB-C or micro USB. It's micro USB port, but it's the first Raspberry Pi device with their own chip.
Oh wow!
That their own RP2040 chip, their own silicon that they're making, and that chip they've also offered their partners, whether it's from Adafruit or SparkFun, to make their own boards with that chip. So, and it uses MicroPython in addition to C. So they're creating this whole low power, efficient, cheap ecosystem of microcontrollers to live alongside the Raspberry Pis.
Oh, neat. So it's not a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't run Linux.
No, I think it's definitely more of an Arduino.
Interesting.
Competitor.
Okay, that's cool. All right, good for them.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Sure, we want to skip science this week. Anything you want to talk about, or should I move on to the next cue?
Why don't we do one quick science story if we have a
I'm
minute?
I'll play the music
brief.
just because, just for the robot, just for yeah. Here we go. Let's go share the audio. Here we go. Wait, that's not the right one.
Now it's time for a moment of science.
Okay, really quickly, the mobile launch platform that was used for the Challenger mission, it's like the big mobile platform with the tank treads that moves space shuttles out to the gantry for launch. The mobile platform 2 is being demolished. It was slated. NASA actually sent around and asked for it to be preserved, but the Smithsonian and others it didn't express any interest, so it's being demolished. There's remnants of mobile platform 1 and 3 still around, but it can't support the weight of the new upcoming space launch system, the SLS. That's going to help. It's a new launch system that's going to help us get to Mars eventually. So it can't support the weight, so it's gone. It's sad to see such a piece of history go away. And then a really quick story about dinosaur buttholes. So there is a dinosaur called the Psittacosaurus, which was found in a skeleton remain was found in China last year. And this is a dinosaur that lived about 65 million years ago. It's a distant relative of the Triceratops. So this is relatively late. It's only about the size of a dog. And when they initially found it, they're like, wow, this is a really interesting specimen. They're able to identify it actually had like bristles on its tail and stuff. But upon further inspection last year, they noticed they could actually see its cloaca, its butthole, its like egg-laying anus. And they're able to actually discern some really interesting things. So one of the things they were able to tell is that it had a high degree of pigmentation, likely from melanin, and that the melanin either gave it some antimicrobial properties or it sort of drew attention to the area for some reason. So it was interesting to have a pigmented thing. It also gave some indications for the multi-use, and its orientation kind of further provided evidence of the lineage towards birds in this case, because it's oriented in a way that it's much more similar to avian creatures than to things like crocodiles, which have a different sort of orientation of a cloaca. So, anyways, there's a great paper in Current Biology if you want to learn about dinosaur buttholes, much more so than we've ever learned before. If people want to hear me talk about COVID stuff, I've kind of laid off because there hasn't been much news, but there is emerging evidence coming on some variants that are emerging around the world and what we know about them and the vaccine efficacy about them. I'm happy to talk about that in coming weeks. That's it.
I would love for you to do so. And like I said at the top of the show, hopefully there are plans if you live in a major metropolitan area about vaccine distribution. And for the Bay Area, at least, there's a website that you can fill in some information and get notified about when it'll be your turn to get the vaccine. Let's do a very quick, maybe a minute even, 60-second VR minute.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
I just want to let you know, Big Screen VR. This is the social VR app that we love. They have started launching free movies to watch with friends. So I guess it was been 2 years ago now that they did some partnerships with studios for pay-to-watch movies, like Top Gun for Paramount, movie Star Trek Top Gun. And some of those partnerships have now allowed them to do free ad-supported movies. I guess Pluto TV is the service they've partnered with. But movies like Arrival, which would be really cool to watch in VR, with a good sound with a headset. Nacho Libre, Blair Witch, and Paranormal Activity 4, with more films every month. This is just for the United States for now. I'm sure they're working on partnerships for and rights for distribution in other countries. And previously, you could mirror your browser and watch YouTube. It's maybe a little bit of a clunky way to get the sound working, but they're going to get native YouTube support built into Big Screen as well. Something that they've been working on. That's maybe very exciting if you and your friends like to jump into a headset and watch videos together. I wonder if that would work for YouTube TV. Probably not, since it's a different domain and website. But
Right.
that could be that would be something I'd want.
The important part here is it's on demand, unlike the other movies, which start every 10 minutes, half hour. This is on demand whenever you're ready to watch it. You can start it, and it does work with groups. So you can get together with people and start a movie and all be in sync. I assume you can pause it. And that's great, because we need more ways to watch things with friends this day and age.
Yeah. Beat Saber also gets 90 hertz support for the Quest 2. So that's the first party app, technically, because Oculus owns them. And God, I want more apps to have 90 hertz support or native headset rendering. I mean, we don't have enough settings controls in these apps themselves. If you're a big fan of Pavlov VR, which we played a lot of, they also dropped their massive World War II update. So World War II weapons and maps and objective-based maps and vehicles as well. So that's something if you have Pavlov to download and check out. Anything else, Jeremy?
Don't forget the NVIDIA hotfix, because there's a lot of people who are Steam VR users who are excited about that. I have not experienced it, thankfully. I'm mostly a Quest user these days, I have to admit, Quest 2. But I have used the Vive recently, and I did not have this problem. But apparently a lot of people have been experiencing stuttering in virtual reality and Steam VR for the past 6 months. And it's taken NVIDIA that long to find the bug, but it is squashed. You have to find the new hotfix, though. So, Google it. It's out there. Can we tell them what to search for? Is there a number?
Is there a version number? Yeah, I'm trying to see.
Well, it's the hotfix for 461.33. But it was released on the 20th. So yeah, it's out. So enjoy the stutter-free VR.
All right. And that does it for this show. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to still continue on with some WandaVision talk next week. I hope you guys will like the episode more. I've been enjoying it. And if you out there have been enjoying it, have some musical chops, I more than welcome a custom, maybe it's called an MCU like jingle. You know how we had the Mandalorian recap jingle that a fan made? An MCU one, because then we can use it for TV shows or movies. And WandaVision's only going to be for a couple more weeks anyway. I would love to hear that. Anything you guys want to shout out or promote before we wrap it up?
No.
All right. Well, we can always find us on social media. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're a new listener coming in from the Adam Savage Project or still Untitled, hope you'll stick with us, and we'd love to hear your feedback as well. We have an outro this week from Great Job. It's an oldie, but I'm sure it's a goodie. Here we go.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested.
The thing is, like, the kids love gambling. The kids love gambling. The claw machine,
The
man.
kids love gambling.
They love gambling.
Wow.
I mean, honestly,
Wow.
they love gambling.
Truer words never spoken. Still true to this day.
Yep,
All right.
I can attest.
See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.